Viewers, to discuss further, I'm being joined by Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow, CSIS. Welcome to the show, Mr. Krishna.
Pleasure being here.
Yes, thank you for speaking to us. So, Mr. Krishna, government sources are saying that Indian industry is already adjusting to the tariffs. So, how do you read that? Is India laying the groundwork for a more resilient, export-ready ecosystem?
See, one thing is very clear, while Indian industry has a lot of resilience to adjust to new tariffs, but the kind of tariffs which have been imposed, I'm talking about including the penalty effective tariff of 50%, that is not all that easy for any industry to absorb, right? No export deals have those kind of profit margins, or even if you re-engineer, your raw material consumption in the products that we export and so on and so forth, it's not going to be that easy to be to be able to do it without passing, the impact of higher tariffs on the US consumers or US industry which buys these products, So it's not easy at all. But yes, the resilience that we have seen in Indian industry is far more than many other comparable countries. So I think industry is coming to terms with, but eventually it will depend on where, the current negotiations, Rajesh Agrawal, the Commerce Secretary, was in the US and he's come back. And so where these things settle, because let's understand one thing very clearly. Today our tariffs are 50%. China is 30%. European Union is 15%. If you look at countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, they're about 19%. UK and Japan are as low as 10%, right? South Korea is 15%, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, 20%. That's a tariff, So where our tariff eventually settles between 10% and 25%, after, these negotiations get concluded and an interim deal is signed, I think a lot will depend upon Indian industry's, adaptability to the new tariff structure as to what is the tariff structure. Currently, I think 50%, it is not easy for industry to adapt to it and to come to terms with it, So I think that's what the situation is,
Absolutely, Mr. Krishna, because 50% is, like you're saying, that, so the industry will get affected if 50% tariffs are levied. But, staying with that, this deal also involves, reciprocal tariffs this could actually mark the start of a new global trade template where India is engaging as an equal partner, rather than a protectionist economy. So what do you have to say on that front as well?
So India has shown a lot of resilience, a lot of openness to see. The fact is, if you historically look at India, the tariff structures have been high. There is no doubt about that in a majority of products. But as President Trump has been saying that we are a tariff king and so on and so forth, that is not really wholly true. Some categories, yes, they are high, and Indian government has shown openness to reduce them. But the weighted average of the duty that India levies on all imports is just about 4.6%. And almost half the products, at least 45% of the products, have a duty structure of less than 5%. So it's not that high, except a few categories which are largely in the agriculture, alcoholic beverages and dairy products and so on and so forth, to protect our interest of farmers. And from what I understand, while government authorities do not divulge the discussions and what contours it is it is going through, but there is some it is believed that there's some letdown. Not letdown, but India has shown a lot more openness in increasing the quota for non-genetically modified corn and soya products. And US has been asking for access for poultry feed, dairy products, ethanol, cheese. I think India has shown some openness to reduce import duty on that kind of a thing. So I think things are moving, and let's understand what we are doing with the US is not an FTA. It is not a free trade agreement which shows a long-term commitment to bring duties to very, very low, and in many categories even 0%. So that is not what we are negotiating right now. We are negotiating an interim deal, to come out of this 50% tariff which has been imposed. And I'm hopeful that and as the Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, has said very clearly, that while India is in no hurry to sign the deal, we can't, operate under the gun. But the fact is that, lot of irritants which were there in February this year have been reduced through 5 rounds of negotiations. And I'm hopeful, we'll a reasonable win-win kind of a deal is round the corner. You may actually see it may actually see the light of the day in a few weeks' time from now.
Absolutely. So a win-win kind of a deal is round the corner is the commentary coming in by Mr. Krishna there. And I'm also being joined by Veena Sikri, former Indian diplomat and High Commissioner. Welcome to the show, ma'am. And so, Ambassador, sources are saying that both sides are now converging on most issues and that the talks are also moving positively. So what does this signal about the strategic maturity of India-US trade relations right now?
Look, I think first of all, we all are agreed, the Americans and the Indians, the governments and the people, that India-US relations are important to both sides. Both sides attach the highest importance, and trade is one part of the relations. So it is true that at the moment, globally and individual countries, tariffs, President Trump's decision to impose tariffs for various reasons, for a variety of reasons, including purchase of Russian oil, has caused a lot of uncertainty in the structured part of the discussions that were ongoing between India and the US. We started in February, and 5 rounds have taken place. The results are very positive. We are very close. In fact, there is talk that even once or twice the file went to President Trump saying, okay, it's ready for signing. But then he wanted something more. I think we are going ahead with the negotiations with an open mind, but in a very sober and collected way. And as our Commerce Minister spoke in Berlin yesterday, Shri Piyush Goyal said that, we are serious about it and we have achieved progress, but we're not going to hurry to the extent of a gun being held to our heads. So we all understand that this excess special tariff of 25% extra because of purchase of Russian oil, this would be one of the points which is being actually discussed. And now we have a new situation where sanctions have been imposed on Rosneft and Lukoil. So that also changes the picture somewhat. So all these are evolving situations, but the deadline has always been November. And that deadline is still not approached. There will have to be another round of talks. There is talk of the delegation, American delegation coming to India or the Indian delegation going there. We will have to watch and see. But I think we are quite calm and sober about it. We are, in the meanwhile, continuing with our other negotiations with other countries, whether it's the European Union, whether it is New Zealand, where the deal with UK has been completed, the deal with UAE has been completed, and Australia has been completed. So things are going on. And I think that in terms of the effect on India's overall exports, is not much, but certainly individual commodity sectors, exporters are affected, and they are talking to the government about how their pain can be relieved. So I think this is an all-round approach. But in the meanwhile, all the other aspects of India and US relations are going ahead. Whether it is the joint exercises, whether it is the talks on individual subjects like, the emerging technologies and so on, all these are going ahead and are scheduled, and they will go ahead. I don't think there's going to be any breakdown in those kind of communications, not at all. In fact, the discussions and the meetings are being scheduled and being held with great regularity. So I think that while this is a very high item on the agenda for most people in India, all the exporters, all the people from the CII, FICCI, CSIs, and all these other organizations who are seriously involved on trade subjects. It is serious, but let us not get overwhelmed by it, and we have to go ahead with the other aspects of bilateral relations and with India's relations with other countries. We know that, USA, President Donald Trump, he's having talks all the time with other countries. He's meeting the new Prime Minister of Japan, the first ever lady Prime Minister of Japan. He's meeting her, and high on the agenda are the same subjects. America wants Japan to invest $550 billion of Japanese money in the USA, but the terms and conditions are not very clear at all. And then there's a question on the tariffs that America wants to levy. When America was holding talks with South Korea on investing $350 billion from South Korea into the USA, the conditions were like America will keep 90% of the profits.
Absolutely.
So, all these issues are so much in the limelight for so many different countries.
Yes.
That we certainly also are aware of what is going on, but we are taking it coolly. And I think that's the right approach.
Yes, so Ambassador, taking your step forward, like you said that India is moving in a calm and sober manner. So this means that India is handling it very differently, no rush, steady virtual rounds, technical scrutiny. So do you see this as a sign of India negotiating from a position of greater confidence and balance there?
Oh, definitely. I think India is negotiating from an overall position of confidence and overall belief in the resilience of the Indian economy and the resilience of individual sector exporters who may be able to find new markets, who may find ways of getting their exports to reach the USA. So many aspects are there, and I think this shows a maturity on the part of our economy and our leadership and our exporters. Everybody's working in tandem. They're working together. Everybody wants to make sure that individual exporters are not adversely affected, and that if there is pain, which there is for some people, that it's not does not last too long, to help them find new markets. And for example, with a new UK trade deal with India, many items which are tariffed in the USA can now go to the UK, and that in fact is happening. So it's not as if options are not there, but still we attach the highest importance to increasing trade with the USA. There was a target of making it go up to $500 billion by 2030 and so on. So we would like to maintain those targets, like to look for new areas, but we have shown a willingness to import much more from the USA in terms of LNG, ethanol, and as you said, certain non-GM farm products also. There's so many areas on which India has definitely been very flexible, and it's got an open mind on many of those things. But because the mind is so open, because our economy has shown a great resilience on these issues, we are not going to be rushed into it. That's the main point.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So now moving on with Mr. Krishna. So, Mr. Krishna, there's optimism that Section 232 tariffs on Indian steel and aluminium might be addressed in this round as well. So how crucial would that be for India's manufacturing and export competitiveness?
I think that's very crucial. So let's understand Section 232 tariffs are related to the U.S. national security issues. And, what the U.S. thinks that even if it's a pending inquiry or investigation by the Department of Commerce in the U.S., the tariff duty can be levied by the president. It empowers the president, if he feels that it adversely affects the national security of the U.S., right? So if you look at several products fall in that category: aluminum, cars, automotive components, copper, furniture, steel, timber, and so on and so forth. And coming back to what you asked, steel and aluminum, let's not forget, in last time when he was the president, President Trump was the president in the first term, he had raised duty on steel from 20 to 25% and 10% on aluminum. In February this year, it became 25% for both steel and aluminum. And when the overall tariff increased to 50%, including the penalty, both the products are facing 50% tariff. And at 50% tariff, let me tell you, we would lose the competitive edge to export aluminum and steel to the US altogether. So I think unless these products come down to a very low level of 10 to 15%, I think it will not augur well for export of steel and aluminum to the US. So I'm hopeful that discussions are happening, and I'm told the scope of discussion includes Section 232 tariffs, especially on steel and aluminum. I'm sure they will come down not only from the 25% each level, but perhaps even lower than what he had levied in 2018, which was 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum.
Yeah, Mr. Krishna. With that, thank you so much, Ambassador Sikri and Mr. Jayant Krishna, for joining us on Profit 360 with your expert take on the evolving India-US trade talk.